the best feature writer in MMA, in my opinion, without a doubt, pound for pound, number one. My friend and yours, the great Shaheen Al-Shatti, joining us from Phoenix, Arizona. There he is. Look at him. Such a pro with his pro microphone there and his headphones and everything. How are you, sir?
What's up, buddy? I'm doing well. How are you, man?
Wow, that is crystal clear. Frank, what about that crystal clear audio?
I mean, I had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
you didn't have to touch it.
It was all Frank. I have nothing to do with it. It's all Frank. He's the true pro here.
He is. But you are as well. Great to have you back on. Nice little nostalgic feeling here. Great stuff this past week in Arizona. Can I ask, by the way, before we get into the actual stuff that happened?
Sure, yeah.
I haven't been to a UFC event in the pandemic era, if we're still calling this the pandemic era. I feel like that's apropos. Things have changed a lot, right? There's no more Ultimate Media Day. It's a little different from a media perspective. What is it like for you? Because I think this was your second one, right? You went to the one last year in Arizona?
Yeah. This is the second one because they keep coming back to the Valley now that we're a little looser on the pandemic restrictions here in the Wild West. I mean, if I'm honest, I don't like it as much as it used to be. I mean, you and I know, like the media day, everybody would be able to kind of get their own individual stuff. It would kind of you'd be able to show your personality a little more and kind of just be able to roam free. And it was a little less. I don't want to say restrictive because it's not necessarily restrictive, but it was a little less like coordinated. It was more free flowing, chaotic, and I feel like a lot of us kind of thrive the best in that chaos. Whereas this, I mean, it's nice, and you're talking to all the athletes, and you actually get a chance to talk to every athlete. Whereas that old media day, you kind of had to pick and choose what you were going to do for that hour or two. But the thing is, everybody kind of gets the same stuff,
right?
And that ultimately, like as a media member, selfishly, that is a little frustrating, and that's I don't like that as much.
But on Wednesday, you got phenomenal stuff, riveting stuff from Tony Ferguson, in large part due to your questions. And so after what he said, and we talked about it a little bit on Wednesday because it was happening during the show, after what he said, and then how the week went on, and then seeing how he was in the first, how he fought in the first, and then seeing ultimately how it played out, the knockout. The photo I feel weird about, to be honest. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Yeah. It's a great photo, and shout out to Hans, who works for the LA Daily News, who I think took the one that everyone's running with. He's phenomenal at what he does, and it's no knock on him, but it just kind of gets put up there, and people are mocking him, and I just don't love that stuff. But just seeing how it ultimately played out, how do you feel about the Tony Ferguson experience of last week, right? Because he's talking about health insurance. He's talking about like these big picture stuff. And then he gets brutally knocked out, the kind of knockout that could change a man's life. He's on Twitter right now. He's talking. They say he's all clear, but that stuff doesn't go away in a day. How do you feel about it now that it's all done?
I mean, man, it's rough too, right? Because I mean, I think I'm pretty well known at this point as the Tony Ferguson guy in the media. Like even when the whole Khabib stuff was going on, like I was always sort of driving that bandwagon that, hey, we're looking at the number one lightweight in the world right now. And it sucks, man. It does suck in a lot of respects because it felt like that was kind of the death knell on whatever this could have been for Tony. And he looked so good in that first 5 minutes, right? Like there was 5 minutes there where maybe I wouldn't say it was vintage Tony, but it certainly felt somewhat like vintage Tony. And it felt like the best Tony we had seen, since he dropped Justin Gaethje. Like he was competitive. He was doing, slicing and dicing Mike up from the bottom. He was doing all these oddball attacks and just the really unorthodox stuff that we see from him. He's winning rounds from the bottom, which you rarely see. And you're right, even throughout the week, like it was very apparent that he's had a lot on his mind and he's had a lot of time to think about it. And that he basically, said like, I went away for a year just because I didn't want to be around any of this. And he came back. I mean, using his platform, he wasn't asked a lot of questions at the press conference, but even just using the pre-fight press conference to basically say like, hey, we need health insurance,
right? That
type of thing. You feel bad because I think at this point it's obvious he's probably never going to contend for a title again in the rest of his career, whatever is left. He'll probably go down as like, if not the best fighter to never challenge for an undisputed title, like at least the top two. Like he is very much in that conversation, which you feel bad because he should have got that 20 times over and it just never happened. But also it just feels like he has a lot of, I don't know if regrets is the right word, but just bad feelings about how maybe the latter stage of his career is gone. And that's something you can't get back, right? Like time is the one gift that is just irreplaceable. And it feels like he's kind of regretful of how this whole chapter has gone.
We've seen this, right? From fighters who maybe never got the big one. They never got the belt. They never quite reached the mountaintop. And then towards the end of the career, there's regret. There's bad feelings, as you say. And this isn't a story that we've never seen before. And it's a bummer because this guy's had a ton of bad luck, right? I mean, just the tripping over the cord thing, I feel like doesn't get talked about enough. The fact that he, you know what I mean? Like the fact that he never sued anyone for that. The fact that he never got anything as a result of that. Just another title shot that then got, ruined by the pandemic. Like this guy, man, he deserves better. And I give him a lot of credit for being on Twitter now and saying, I love this stuff and I can't wait to get back in there. I don't want to see him back in there anytime soon. Is there a part of you that never wants to see him fight again just for his own health?
Selfishly, yeah, if I'm being honest, which is difficult for me to say because, again, I've sort of been driving this bandwagon for so long. But, I mean, this was a guy, even when he was winning, even over the course of that incredible streak, how was that streak made, right? It was made in chaos. He was the guy who thrived in chaos before Charles was the guy who thrived in chaos, where every fight was bloody, every fight was going to be messy, every fight maybe not be the most technical sound thing you've ever seen, but ultimately he was just going to out-grit, out-pressure, and just outwork these dudes and really break them. And that style takes a toll, right? And to me, it is actually relatively impressive that it lasted as long as it did because he was – like even towards the latter stage of the Khabib chapter and all of that, he was the oldest lightweight at that point in the division that mattered. Like if he would have won the title and actually fought Khabib, he would have been the oldest UFC lightweight champion in history. So the fact that he made it that far fighting like that, to me, still speaks volumes about just how great he was over the course of the majority of his career. But yeah, man, I mean, especially after the last four, I mean, the Gaethje one in particular was pretty brutal. And then seeing the Mike one, I mean, that was... I've seen a lot of knockouts. I've seen a lot of fights live in person over the course of, this whole career. That's one of the worst ones I've seen.
Yeah. What was it like in the arena?
Tough.
Tell us.
It was tough because I don't know what I haven't been able to see the broadcast view of it. I don't know if the broadcast showed Tony afterwards or like went back to him at all, but he was down for a really long time.
Yeah.
On the canvas. It felt like it was several minutes. And it felt like it was eternity, if I'm being honest. Like he was really moving. And he just had a lot of guys sort of around him, doctors and stuff trying to get him up. And even when he was leaving the arena or the octagon, the fighters have to walk by press row. He was walking by and it was just, you could see that he wasn't kind of there in his eyes. And he stopped once he passed me and he looked up at the monitor to try to just watch the knockout to understand what happened. It was really brutal and kind of just somber. And obviously Mike owned the moment. He's doing backflips all over the cage. And
it's
he's
always weird, right? They're doing backflips and there's a dude that's like freaking motionless on the ground.
Yeah, the dichotomy of that visual was really strange. It was just really strange to watch. And the crowd was exploding because obviously they just saw the craziest highlight of the night. Right. So it's just, you see Tony there and he's kind of like twitching and it's a real stark reminder of what this is, right?
Yeah. It's hard to describe, but it did feel like a punt more so than a front kick to the face. Like it was something we've never seen before. And very
from Mike
hard.
Chandler. Like when's Mike Chandler throwing out front kicks?
Dude, Mike, the whole thing. When's Mike Chandler cutting promos like this? Like where has this guy been for the last 10? The guy freaking cut a promo hitting every single mark, every single thing on the checklist. Connor walks off. Like it was flawless from Chandler. I saw one video of Ferguson walking out of the cage and Chuck Liddell meets him and says something to him, and then he kind of just gave him a little tap on the head. I was like, "Oh, why'd you have to tap him right on the head after he just got brutally knocked out?" But just a tough scene. On the flip side, you have Chandler, who's riding high. That investment that the UFC has made in him has paid off in a massive way. Even though he's not, a champion, he's 2-2. But every single one of his fights have been incredible. Last year, arguably the fight of the year. Who would you like to see him fight next? Because I feel like you could go on several. There's no clear cut, answer to this one.
To me, I think it's kind of funny in a weird way. Like it's kind of wild the way that Chandler has reshaped his image in the UFC.
I know,
because we've known this guy for a long time. He's been in our lives for a long time, and now he just comes here and it seems like it's his personal mission to make every single fight as ridiculous and as exciting, and every aspect of that, whatever's going on around him, as exciting as possible. And just wins or losses, whatever. Just I'm going to make sure you remember me, which is a really interesting way to approach this, frankly. And it seems like it's working. It's certainly the right way to approach it if you're Mike and you're coming in sort of at the last chapter of your career. He's Dana White's favorite fighter, apparently, man.
Yeah.
As for what's next, I like the Beneil fight. I like the Beneil fight.
Wow. I didn't even think of that one. Interesting.
Because to me, like Like, I know the world is probably setting up to where Conor's going to come in and he might be able to just fight Charles next, depending on the timelines and how all this stuff works. I feel like Islam should fight Charles. I feel like that's the most obvious thing. He's already earned it 20 times over. Like, I don't know why.
In Abu Dhabi?
Making this guy. Yeah. However it works. But if Abu Dhabi would be ideal, right? Because
I know, but not fair to Charles.
Well, Charles also fought Justin in Justin's hometown.
I know, what the hell?
He didn't seem to care very much.
I know.
So
can he not get a homecoming? Can he not fight in Brazil, the poor guy?
He can't catch a break. And frankly, I think he kind of likes it that way. He's kind of a masochist the way he's out there now. But I like the Islam fight, man. We don't need to this guy doesn't need to prove anything else. Like, I think a lot of people still feel like he's probably the number one lightweight in the world anyway. So like, just run that. And then Beneil's out there. Mike Chandler's a tremendous fight. And that could kind of be for who's next.
So not Chandler Poirier, not Chandler Diaz, Chandler Beneil.
I mean, I wouldn't mind Chandler Poirier. That's certainly fun. But I know the Dustin Nate thing is weird. I'm going to plant my flag on that 1,000 times. I still just want Dustin Nate. Yeah. Like, just give it to us. We've been teased for years since New York. Like, come on, man. Just give Nate a fight.
I know.
Like, let's
don't
get
me started on
this point.
Every single freaking day, it's another tweet. I mean, I know New York Rick and Jose love it for the social media engagement, but golly, can we just freaking get this guy a fight? All right, so that's an interesting one. And then you give Islam, even though Dana White did say that he has to fight, that Islam has to fight Beneil because he turned down the RDA fight and all that. Just pretend that didn't happen.
On like 2 days' notice. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Just pretend that. By the way, who do you pick in that fight? Islam versus
Charles.
Charles, yeah.
Oh man, that's tough.
It is a tough one.
Styles, right? Like the styles, that plays perfectly into what each guy wants to do. Like, I'm kind of done doubting Charles, if I'm being honest. Like, I continually keep doubting Charles. I picked Dustin, I picked Justin. Like, I just can't keep doing this anymore. So maybe I'm finally going to pick Charles, but Islam does feel like a nightmare stylistic matchup. I mean, to me, that's why that fight is so fun too, right? Because I feel like Charles is reaching this really interesting place in his career where, like, he has all these records and he has all these names on this resume. I mean, just the list of records alone, like, that dude basically has like half of the lightweight records in the UFC. And then just like in general, the finishes, the subs, like we all know it. We don't need to go over it. But then you look at the names too on the resume and it's a real stark reminder of like how long this guy's been around, where he's got the new guard where it's like a Dustin, just all of the guys he's been fighting over this, Tony, Chandler. But then he's got the old guard too. He's got like Jim Miller, Clay Guida, Jeremy Stevens, Darren Elkins. Like, he's just spanning eras. And I feel like if he is able to beat sort of this Habib era parent, whatever this closest approximation of Habib we have in Islam, who kind of has this aura a little bit around him of this unbreakable guy, if he's able to go in there and break him and sub him or whatever it is, like, I feel like we start really talking about Charles as a different level of all-timer when it comes to this 155 division.
Yeah, by the way, 32 years old. Like, he's taken a lot of damage. He gets beat up, but he's still pretty damn young.
That's the thing too that blows me away is like, and I asked him this at the press conference where it's like, you list all these names, you list all these accolades, and it feels like we'd be talking about someone who's like 38, 39, like a Tony who's like on his way out. And it's just like, this is what he's collected, he's gathered over the course of, X number of years. Charles he might be in his prime right now. Like, he might just have another 5 years of doing this at a very high level. Like, the fact that we're talking about this for a 32-year-old to me is insane. And it's just the way this whole Charles Oliveira story over the last couple of years and the way this guy's really turned things around. It's one of the most spectacular things I've ever seen, frankly, when it comes to the sport.
Did Phoenix show him love? Like, did they appreciate him? Did it feel like a big deal was fighting, a guy on a 10-fight, now 11-fight winning streak, most subs, all that stuff? Did they show? Because I got to say, I'm rooting for the Suns. I want you guys to.
Dude.
I mean, what is up with this crowd?
Preach. Speak on it.
What is up with this crowd? Booing Shogun. It was disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting. What's wrong with these people over there? And what do you think? You're a proud Arizonian, if that's the word. That's the word, right? What do you call someone from Phoenix?
Arizonan?
Yeah, close enough. A Phoenician? Is that true? Is it really a Phoenician?
Well, Phoenician's like from Phoenix, right? But like I'm in Peoria. Like the way the cities are
all right, fair enough.
Divided up is weird.
I mean, come on. 15 minutes, just shut the hell up. Go get, if you don't like the fight, just go, don't say anything, you morons. And then the Rose thing we'll get into in a second, but it just really, were they showing him love?
Don't even get me started on the Shogun thing. Cause like that was upsetting me so much in the moment. And it was, disgusting is a good word. You use the word disgusting. Embarrassing is the word that I would use for someone who is from this place. And I'd like to think, I represent Arizona to a certain degree. Y'all should be ashamed of yourself. And frankly, like, we lost to the Dallas Mavericks with the worst playoff game that I have seen in a long time yesterday because of you.
Wow.
You were the reason that we lost, all of you. I was about to make this an R-rated program. I'm not going to do that.
You can do
but
it.
You guys caused us to lose. Like, it was absolutely embarrassing. You can't boo Shogun. What are you doing? You can boo whoever you want, but you can't boo Shogun. But yeah, no. In terms of Charles and the reception he got, he felt like a big deal, certainly. But I mean, Justin is the Arizona guy. He brings out. He's from a small town here called Safford, and every time he fights, even way back in the World Series of Fighting days, where I would go to these Palomino fights, he brings out all of Safford, basically. Okay. It seems like 60%, 70% of the town comes out for him. So it was a very partisan, bias, pro-Gaethje crowd the whole week for anything we were doing. But I mean, once Charles won, and the performance was utterly spectacular, and that fight, for as long as it lasted, was just tremendous. The crowd was definitely showing him love and just appreciation for what was going on.
So I've made my feelings on the whole 0.5 being stripped of the belt known. I don't agree with it. How do you feel? Tell us how you feel about him not being champion on this Monday.
Him not being champion on this Monday is tremendously unfortunate, and I think it's fairly sad. And I think you hit a lot of the points that I was sort of mentioning as well last week, where I don't think, like, the fight itself is one thing, right? The fight on Saturday is one thing. The ramifications that come with it, just how weird stuff gets now with, like, technically we don't have a champion, that's one thing. But the actual money that guy lost because of one gentleman on the Phoenix Commission is pretty outrageous, right? Like, if you count the percentage of the purse that he lost on Saturday, and then the fact that we don't know whether he's going to get pay-per-view points for the next time out. And we don't know whether he's going to get the champion's purse for the next time out. Is his contract going to revert back to what it was as a contender? Because these contracts, like, as soon as you lose that belt, you're way back down to what you were before you had the belt. How's that going to work? Dana White seemed unsure or didn't want to give us an answer on Saturday about that. And the UFC, we know the UFC certainly never misses a moment to penny pinch when it comes to paying these guys in a lot of ways. So that's like Charles Oliveira, because of that 1/2 pound, might have lost like 7 figures worth of earning by the time all of this is over, depending on how this goes moving forward. And that, to me, is tremendously unfortunate, because it's the same thing. I see a lot of people have said it. You've said it. I've said it. Where, how many weigh-ins have you seen in your life?
Yeah.
How many times have you watched this? And how many different times have guys just kind of been like, all right, move on. It's 155. Let's go. Like, 9 times out of 10, that is 155. No one thinks a second. No one has like a second thought about it, and we just move on. And he just really caught the wrong guy on the wrong day. And because of that, so many other things got messed up. And to me, it's unfortunate. It's sad. And I wish it didn't happen.
Wait, so when you say unfortunate, just to be clear, unfortunate is one thing. Do you agree with it, though? Like, you could agree with something that's unfortunate, right? Like, it sucks. He messed up. It's 0.5. Do you agree with the decision to strip him and penalize him the way in which he was penalized?
That's tough, because it's hard for me to fault a commission member for ultimately doing their job, right? Because they are supposed to ostensibly tell us the actual weight rather than zoom it along like a lot of guys do. So I can't fault him for that, but the system itself is a little screwy, because ultimately it's the UFC's belt. The belt belongs to the UFC. They can do whatever they want with it. It's not the commission's belt, as you said earlier. So in that regard, it feels silly to me to act as though Charles Oliveira is not the lightweight champion and treat him as though he's not the lightweight champion. So in that aspect, I do wish the UFC had made some sort of exception, or at least just, massage the situation a little bit to where it wasn't DC with the towel. This wasn't, Charles missing by 4 pounds. Like, this was a very bizarre situation. It seemed like a lot of weird stuff was going on around the scale. I think we can give him a pass. I know people are going to get up in arms. You got to really protect the rules. You can't give people a pass. You can't pick and choose. But this was a very, very unusual situation, unprecedented in a lot of ways. And to me, it just feels silly to not treat like this guy like he's the champion, because also there's historical ramifications too, right? Where lightweight division, I think the most title defenses ever in the history of the lightweight division consecutively is 3. Charles would be going for that in his next fight. if this didn't happen, he would be going to basically be tied for the greatest UFC lightweight champion of all time. And now it resets back to zero. After he wins the next one, like he has to win the next one and then it resets to zero. Like,
oh my God,
he deserves better.
It is. It's kind of like, to compare it to basketball, palming. You know what I mean? And people are, no one calls that. And so let's say it's 15 seconds left in Game 7 of the NBA Finals, and Scott Foster wants to call, palming.
Don't mention the name Scott Foster.
Well, I'm going to say on Chris Paul, right? Like, I could see that happening, but you get the point. So it's like there's certain things that it's just a part of the culture of the sport where you're not being a stickler for 0.5 pounds. And hopefully the UFC makes it right in terms of the pay. They can't, I guess, make it right in terms of history, as you pointed out. But I would like to see them make it right. I feel horrible for the guy. Can I ask you about Rose and Carla? Being in there, sure. What is it like? What is it like when you're watching it? It's a certain way on TV, and you got the commentary. Watching it live, what was that like?
Watching it live, the feeling in that arena is the impatience. Then the way the impatience sort of turns to frustration, and then the way the frustration sort of melds into anger. And then by the end of it, people are almost being sarcastic. It was very palpable. Like you cut the tension with the knife, maybe not the tension, but the frustration with a knife in there during it. It was weird. It was really weird. I know you were defending it earlier, and you're certainly well within your rights to me, but to do that. But to me, it was the worst title fight in UFC history. And I don't
worse than Romero Adesanya.
Yeah. Because like two things, right? Like Romero had that moment where he kind of hit Izzy and like staggered Izzy a little bit early.
Yeah.
That's at least more than we ever got during this whole title fight. Also, there's just an element of weirdness that Yoel Romero presents that's like kind of like vaguely interesting to some degree. Sure. There was nothing interesting about this. There was not a single moment that was interesting. Carla had like that mini suplex in round 4, and like that didn't matter because like Rose popped right back up. That was literally the best moment of all of this. So to me, it was like, you got to go back to like Arlovsky Sylvia 3 or something to find something worse than this. Like, this is really bad.
Yeah. And to be clear, I'm not defending it because I thought it was good. I agree with everything that you say, but I don't know. I guess I'm just not too offended by it. I'm not too upset. Sometimes high level sports turns out to be not so good. And that's just the way it goes sometimes. Yeah. I just feel like there was a lot of hatred thrown their way. Who do you blame for this, by the way? Do you blame both of them? Do you blame Rose? Seems like Rose getting a lot of the heat. How do you feel about it? Like in terms of if we want to pass out some blame for this product, this fight, this 25 minutes.
The hatred was interesting because I agree that the hatred has been almost outsized because you're right. It's a bad fight. Move on. Who cares? And I wonder, just as someone who, obviously we're on social media all day, we're reading comments on articles and posting, et cetera. I wonder if part of the backlash to this is because people are upset at Rose for basically losing to someone that they feel still even now that she's better than. And a lot of people just don't want Carla to be champion. Like we saw this over the course of the past couple of years where Carla deserved this fight a long time ago. And it took a really long time for us to even get to that point. And even in the narratives and the lead up to this was basically like, this is going to be Volkanovski zombie. Like this is going to just be a wash. And the fact that Rose just basically let Carla do very little and still come away and steal this title. Seems like people are more, maybe I'm reading it wrong, but maybe it seems like there's a lot of anger around that of like, if they booked the trilogy fight tomorrow, which they won't, but if they did, I think a lot of people would still pick Rose and the Rose would still be the heavy favorite. And I think that's maybe where a lot of it's coming to, where it's just like Rose really just, I don't know. I think our pal Jed Meshew said this on our post-fight show, and it's a really interesting point where it's like Rose as the champion fights so much differently than Rose as the challenger. And it's because like if you go back just historically and look at her title defenses, and then you look when she's actually going to try to get to the belt, it's a completely different fighter in terms of aggression and the way she approaches this stuff. I wonder what that is, because there's certainly something there. We've seen enough evidence now to where it's just, I don't know, Rose has the strangest career. Like when we go back, when all this is over, like when we go back and look at it, I don't know that there's a lot of fighters you can really compare to the ups and the downs that are so vastly like up and down when it comes to somebody like this.
Yeah. Remember Karolina Kowalkiewicz? Remember that fight?
Yeah. Same type of thing. Right. It's just, it's when Rose, we say it all the time, but like when Rose is on and when she's flowing, there's few people who are better to watch in the sport. But then when she's not on, it's really bad. I don't know. The split of the difference in that is just very interesting to me.
I hope we see her fight again. I could see them trying to do maybe her versus Marina Rodriguez, because obviously Marina lost to Carla. I know she thinks she's close, but I don't know if she's getting it now. She might be the biggest loser in all this. And isn't it crazy that if Joanna beats Zhang Wei Li, we could get Carla Joanna too? Like, who would have thought? Joanna, GC over there. GC, what's your future on Joanna?
35-1 plus 3,500.
But you said she has to be the champion by the end of the year, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And you bet this when?
December.
Like, it felt like quite the long shot.
My gosh. That's why that man is by the way, hosting a show called No Bets Barred with Jen Mashu that you should absolutely tune into every Wednesday. It's great stuff. They hit one of their Wolfpack wagers this week. But yeah, that's it. I mean, Joanna's window all of a sudden is like now. Like if she is ever going to be a UFC champion again, like all of a sudden it's right here for her, which is not anything I expected to ever say after like the last couple of years we've seen with it.
Unbelievable. Well, great stuff, man. Great to have you back on the show. I am not going to hate on you for the booze in the Shogun fight, or even the booze in the Rose and Carla fight, although I think you feel like those were somewhat justified. The Shogun ones were just, I mean, appalling. And great coverage all week with the Tony stuff, with the post-fight stuff. It was nice to have, and again, I say this, I'm not saying the other people are, I'm not throwing shade, but you know, one of the OGs. It was nice to have one of the OGs on the scene. So well done, my friend, and keep up the great work. Great to have you back on. We'll do it again soon.
Well, I appreciate you, man. It's been a nice little couple of days here. I get to be on the MMA Hour. Yesterday, I get to celebrate our first Mother's Day with my wife, who is very, very pregnant right now. So
well done.
It's the first time we were able to celebrate that together. So it's been a nice little 72 hours for us, except for that whole Phoenix Suns thing. We don't need it.
Yeah, you got game 5. Game 5 will be all good. Don't worry about it. You're good. You're good.
Good talking, buddy.
Thanks, man. I
don't feel good at all about game 5 at all. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, I know, but you don't feel good about anything. You won't feel good the moment they win the championship. You'll worry about next year. That's just the kind of fan you are. And I appreciate that because I'm the same way.
Well, let's not say that. If they ever win the championship in my lifetime, you're not going to hear from me for like 2 months because I'm just going to fall off the face of the earth because I'll lose my mind. But let's hopefully get there.
Yes.
Because if we lose to the F and Dallas Mavericks, I'm going to be really, really, really upset.
All right. Well, hopefully that doesn't happen. I'm pulling for you guys. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Likewise, brother. Thank you, man.